for our opening meditation. So please close your eyes and relax. And take in a deep breath through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And inhale through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And as you go at your own pace of inhaling through the nose and holding, and exhaling through the mouth and holding. If thoughts should come into your head, just observe them and let them go. Like watching a car move past on the road. Now is not the time for solving problems. Right now, all you need to do is inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And on your next inhale, say to yourself, Shema, and on the exhale, listen. Shema, listen. In Shema, we're listening deeply, without judgment, without offering advice. In Shema, we are listening with an open heart. Shema, listen. And when you are ready, you may open your eyes. Well, friends, as a reminder in our Mussar practice, we are looking to elevate ourselves. We are on the path of the Mensch, or perhaps on the path of holiness. It's really about personal conduct. It is about, oops, hang on a second, I've got a couple people to admit. It's about cultivating character traits, or midot as we call them, soul traits, to really, show up as the best version of ourselves. So right now, this is a time of extraordinary stress in the country between the election, between COVID. There's just a lot going on. And whomever you voted for, I imagine this is a stressful time. I can only speak for myself. But now we have an opportunity to kind of leave that behind, to spend some time focusing on the good in the world and the good within ourselves and what we can do to cultivate both of those. Not that we are ignoring the outside world, but the more that we can bring ourselves to a place of strength and wholeness, the better position we'll be in order to face what's happening. So for today, we're going to get started with something I shared in the email. It's this phrase that came to me earlier in the week. You may have seen my email, or I hadn't intended to email you, but I was thinking about this phrase from the book of Joshua. Be strong and courageous, do not be terrified or dismayed. And I put somewhat differently here, for the divine is with you wherever you go. And part of the reason why I put that down below is kind of one of the founding core principles of American Mussar is providing alternatives for God talk. And I wrote a paper on this for school earlier, like what do we get and what do we lose if we sort of include the divine in this sentence? So I'll kind of open it up to the group. There's sort of two possible questions, how does this land for you? Do you find this helpful or comforting? And then what, what role does the God language play for you in your reaction to this? So for those who are new, you can just unmute and comment at any time. I don't see everyone at the moment because I'm sharing my screen.
This quotation also reminds me of the equanimity trait that we worked on. So like, don't panic, kind of, and
yeah. Thank you. That is one, absolutely. It's trying to keep our equanimity, don't panic. And also, what else? What other messages do you take from this? What does it mean to be strong and courageous?
Hi, Greg and everybody else.
okay.
When I read the first line, I am reminded of our place in history, and that this is throughout the last few thousand years, humans have always had to be strong and courageous, and those that survive, they might be terrified or dismayed, but they rally, and throughout history, we've had to draw on something, whether it be the divine or the universe or whatever we want to call it, in order to survive, in order to grow, in order to stay a civilization. And that's how I look at it, and that's how I'm looking at this particularly stressful time in our USA history. So.
Thank you, Carrie.
For me, it's easier to change my actions than to change my thoughts. And if I change my actions, sometimes my thoughts go along for the ride. For example, I know that stewing and fretting don't accomplish anything, but if I can translate for me some of that energy into an action, like, for example, when I was upset yesterday, I planted bulbs in the ground. When I was upset today, I baked. Does it make me less upset? Does it make me stronger and more courageous? I can't say, but at least it stops the stewing for me.
Thank you, Janet. Yeah, so that's a very Mussar-centric point that you brought up is focusing on taking actions, and the emotions are going to be what they're going to be. Again, this is a little bit like what Joanne said about equanimity. The emotions will do what they're going to do, but it's how do we act? I don't know, for me, I feel like, and maybe this is a guy thing or a Greg thing, I'm not sure, but the strong and courageous feel a little more action-oriented than terrified or dismayed. That there's a great teaching in Pirkei Avot, who is strong? One who can overcome their inclinations, one who can overcome their emotions. So again, very interesting connection there. Carrie brought up an interesting point that throughout history we've had to draw on, I'll paraphrase, or Carrie, correct me if I am misrepresenting what you said, but there's something about, we can't really do this alone, but to get through tumultuous periods of history or tumultuous periods of our own life, and maybe even regular parts of our own life, we need to draw on something. We need something else. And so what might that be? What do you draw upon?
I like what Carrie and what Janet had to say. And dropping down to you were including the divine. The longer I live, the less that language meets me. But yet, I haven't let go of a belief in something more than me, than us. And because of the work I do, I see the value in people struggling with their vocabulary to find a synonym that will help connect with that something more. That's all.
Greg, I like that.
I muted myself again. Go ahead, Eileen.
I always reflect on what one of our participants said here, that our spark, our divine spark, is occluded by the baggage that we have brought with us along the path with us. And I think during these troubling times, I try to understand the baggage and shed it and resort to the strengths and things that make me feel stronger and do those things that I have control over. And that's something that makes people feel better. And that's why we bake and we do all these comfort things, and because we have a control over that and we feel good at it. For me. But that divine spark that was beautiful. I don't know who said that. Maybe you did.
It's one of the things that I wrote, but it's also something that many in this group have resonated with and brought up from time to time as well. Linda, I wanted to get back to your question as well. Do you have a synonym that sometimes works for you?
Yeah, power.
There are times when I'm sitting in one of the chairs that fill my pantheon, and I can use the term universe with an assumption that the universe is aware of us and cares about us. It's a struggle, but maybe nature comes the closest to the experience, the things that a person feels when they're actually out in nature. But it's an important struggle, and one that I do with wherever I'm sitting.
Yeah. Before we go on, thank you, Linda. I also want to just take a moment just to, if you're not on the multi-view screen, just to go to that and just to look at the other people and look into your camera so people can feel like you're looking at them, and then look at the group. And let me just look at who else is here.
It's kind of hard to do on your phone.
Well, thank you, Rick. It's always nice to see you. Yes, you can go one at a time or scroll through. Suddenly, everyone is smiling.
That's all your fault.
I think it helps feeling a part of a community.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that helps you have courage and not be so dismayed with what's going on in the world.
That's right. We're all chosen to be here tonight. Different times of the day, thousands of miles apart. Here we are. let's talk about loving kindness. We began last week and we talked a lot about self-care and kindness towards the self. Let's go back to basics a little bit here. May I have a volunteer to read this first bullet, please?
Often translated as loving kindness, chesed refers to acts of benevolence that one does out of kindness, not out of any obligation.
Thank you.
Tamara Cohen Ashkenazi.
Yeah, thank you. So, and actually, I'll show that a little bit later. That was from her commentary on the Book of Ruth. And the Book of Ruth, we're going to cover that in a few different ways tonight. But what jumps out at you from her statement here is a key factor in loving kindness or chesed?
But it's not done out of obligation.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important.
Yeah. Yeah. Last week, a couple of the things we talked about were saying that the world was built on acts of loving kindness. And that a lot of this was going outside of kind of the path of least resistance. It's really going above and beyond, just to be kind, just to be like a good person, just to be a match, just to kind of uplift someone else. So we have someone else to kind of read this example. I think it's a wonderful example of what this might look like.
One who gives a coin to a poor man is blessed with 6 blessings, and one who comforts the poor man with words is blessed with 13 blessings.
Thank you. It's from the Talmud. So what's the point here?
It's much easier to respond with a tangible thing than a piece of yourself.
Yeah. Yes.
Beautiful. Yeah. It's easy, I know speaking for me, it's easy for me to kind of make my charitable donation and I hear about homelessness and I write a check, and that's much easier than going down to the shelter and forming a relationship with someone, hearing their story. Carol.
Not only give a piece of yourself, but you accept a piece of the other person. Be that person. You can give a coin to a poor person who's out there panhandling and never see the person. Never see that person. You just, here, it's good. But if you talk to that person, you engage that person in conversation, then that person becomes an individual. It's no longer an abstraction. It becomes personal.
Yeah.
And it's not really that easy to do if you're a naturally introverted, shy person. In fact, it's quite difficult to do. But it's something that is quite a good thing to do if you can. Yeah,
I think it's hard for people, even if they do tend to be more outgoing. I mean, some people can, but it's almost a different access. It's how open the heart is, because I don't know, I've told this story before, but there was our synagogue participated in something called Home and Hope, where basically we'd open the social hall to homeless people, and they would set up tents and they would stay there. And many synagogues and churches and other places of worship would kind of rotate around. And an email came out that they were short, that they needed somebody. And I was on the board of the synagogue at the time, and I was practicing chesed at the time. And I was so uncomfortable, but I'm like, I'm gonna do this. I'm free tonight. And I went, and I talked to a few people, and I was present, and I was uncomfortable the whole time. And I was uncomfortable when I left, but I was there. I showed up and made a little girl laugh, and I made her mother smile. And, you know, these things aren't, and if it wasn't for the Mussar practice, it wasn't for like this email coming in, I wouldn't have done it because it was uncomfortable and it was hard for me. And I think sometimes there's this expectation that, you know, it's all going to be easy, or oh, if we just went, you know, things would get better. But it's not about me. You know, it wasn't about me. It was about them. Yeah, Carol.
If it were easy, then it wouldn't really be a mitzvah. The story was told to me that, oh, you're going home and your neighbor's there, your next door neighbor or your down the street neighbor, and you give them a ride. That's not really, it's nothing. That's what you should do because, you know, you're not going out of your way. But if somebody needs a ride and you give them a ride 20 minutes in the opposite direction from where you're going, then you're going out of your way to do something that's kind. And that counts, if you will, counts, whatever that means. So, because it's more difficult. When it's easy, it's not, you know, if I give my friend a ride home and she lives right down the street from me, that's easy, that's nothing. You know, I'd be a jerk if I didn't do it.
Yeah, that's a wonderful example, Carol. Thank you. And it, again, reminds me of something that happened when I was in graduate school. I was in lab. It was about 2 in the morning, and I was exhausted. The trains weren't running anymore. I didn't really want to ride my bike home. So I was going to call a cab. And then like this guy down the hall who I didn't know very well, he was leaving. So you're leaving? I'll give you a ride home. And he lived literally on the other side of the city.
Wow.
And boy, I never forgot that. It just meant so much to me. And I wasn't even like that big a fan of the guy, you know, but he was like, I was after that. I mean, he really was there when it counted, you know, and it was really, really nice of him. Okay, let's go a little bit further on our journey here. Another volunteer to read this, please.
Mussar tells us that action is the key to opening the heart. It is too easy to think good thoughts, say the right thing, but then just continue to be stuck in the same old ways. We're too easy to deceive, especially self-deceive. Action is required. Then through experience, the heart learns and opens, setting off a chain reaction of hearts opening and connecting, leading right up to openness and connection to God. Everyday Holiness by Alan Marinas.
All right, thank you. So Marinas, what is his key teaching here? What do we take away from this?
Action to act. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the more you do it, the more it softens your heart.
Yes.
And you can talk about it all you want, but if you're not doing something to show that you really mean it,
Mm-hmm.
then you don't really mean
it. Some years ago, through a story, I learned something, and I tried to practice it, and I'll share it with you. Is when you meet a homeless person and they ask you for something, first I learned is to have something ready for them. So while I was working, I would in the neighborhood there was always homeless folks. So I always carried with me a couple of gift certificates and a street tip, so I could give them a gift certificate to McDonald's. But what I've learned is that it's a one-way interaction. What's better is if you would ask for a blessing of you for yourself. Well, that was hard because I just didn't know what kind of blessings do I need. Mm. But with COVID, it was real easy because I could say that I'm an elder and I'm at risk. And would you give me a blessing? Mm. And people would give really nice, you know, it wasn't easy. It's quite hard. I haven't had that chance very much because I'm not out very much, but it was a good story that I read somewhere, and I tried it, and and again, it's hard. It would be easy, then it wouldn't be much, but it is. But there's rewards for that.
Thank you, Frank. Wow, what a powerful practice. Part of me is impressed, and part of me is sort of cringing at the thought of trying to do this myself. So what might that be like though? What would the power of doing this? Let's break this down from like a soul to soul interaction. What is it that Frank is describing here?
It's more than a thank you. I don't know.
It's like he has to come out of himself to ask for a blessing, and then that person has to come out with the blessing. Though I have to say, often when I do give money to someone who's begging on the street, they say, God bless you, without even asking them.
But it makes it two ways.
Yes.
And that's what Frank says is it's no longer a one-way transaction.
Right.
I mean, it's transactional rather than just one-way direct.
Randy, you look like you're percolating on this one. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, sure. I was thinking too, that when you give somebody something and they say, God bless you, it's, there's a rightness in the universe to that, who got the bigger gift, you know what I mean? You give somebody $5 and you get a God bless you in return. Well, I feel like I received more than they give, but I was thinking that it is saying there's abundance in life, that it's not that there's a shortage, and that's how we should be. We should live by it. There's a beauty and a goodness in life to looking beyond ourselves and pursuing things that matter and last. And I've been thinking about that, like what you said with courage involves faith. And there's a different kind of courage, that where people conquest and form empires or do that. But there's a kind of courage where you have not the slightest idea. You can't make that thing, Noah builds an ark. Well, he doesn't know, or most of the people that, if I think of a story that way, they had this thing called faith, that something you can't see, you have no idea, but you're just caught up and almost carried away against maybe your common sense, you know what I mean, that you might be pulled one way, but you have something else that's pulling you this other way, this good inclination that wins out, and you're a bit amazed. Well, I did that thing. I'm a bit surprised, or sometimes where we put ourselves where, well, if I put myself in this situation, that stream of things will carry me. And I've been thoughtful on that.
You're muted, Greg. You muted, Greg.
Wow, this is like the day for muting. There must be some message from the universe about this. I was thinking, Randy, and thank you so much. You said so many beautiful things there. But when you were talking about someone, like you give someone $5 and they give you a blessing, I'm thinking about times when people I've given them money and they've said, God bless you, and how I've just blown that off and ignored it. And like, oh, they were just being polite, or wow, they must be really desperate. But what if they really mean it? What if I judge them to the side of merit? They're like, wow, they are really offering me a blessing, like genuinely, and I don't think about things in that way, but they are genuinely offering a blessing. That is quite powerful. Janet.
I just thought about the people who bless me when I say, I'm sorry, I don't have any money. Well, God bless you.
Mm.
So they're giving me the gift and I'm not giving them.
That is a definition of chesed, right? Giving something without expecting anything in return. Janos.
I just want to share another side of the coin because while every coin has two sides, I mean, I had the experience last Sunday when I really wanted to give to somebody I really love and care, and they refused to take it.
Mm.
Being that I really wanted to help, it's about my daughter, and she was not able to take it for whatever reason, but the pain I experienced, that is not even rejection, it's just when you give your heart and they say no thank you. So that's, I would say that's another side, not even inclination, but when you have a good inclination and it's not being taken, then you realize how big suffering could be in life.
Yeah, thank you. Rick.
So you guys remember I'm in Arkansas, but when I see somebody on the street, I say, I'm going to buy a blessing, and I give them money. And I always feel like people are really sincere when they say, God bless you. It touches me the way they say it.
That's beautiful. This really, really is a great segue. This whole conversation is a great segue to a reading I discovered today from the book of Ruth. So hang on, let me stop the share. How many people are familiar with the story of Ruth, of the book of Ruth? See a few nodding heads. It's a story about a woman, Naomi, who goes with her husband and 2 sons to the land of Moab, and her husband dies, and the sons get married, and then the 2 sons die, and she starts returning back to the land of Canaan from Moab, and one of the daughters, Ruth, goes with her, and various things happen, and Naomi helps Ruth get married, and there's a lot of kindness that's done to one another. And so can I have a volunteer to read this first paragraph?
Okay, the narrative pattern that typified the book of Ruth is that what one person wishes for another person comes to fruition principally through the actions of the well-wisher. Thus, although people frequently invoke God's intercession, it is they who actually intercede in setting things right. As Freimer Kensky observes, the characters in the book of Ruth themselves act to fulfill the blessing that they bestow on one another in God's name.
Thank you, Lainey. So why don't you read this second bullet as well, which further emphasizes the point.
Did you want me to read that?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. God's kindness is invoked by human beings, is also enacted by them. To put it another way, the kindness of human beings reveals the kindness of a God. Alice Eistricker, Ruth and the Love of the Land.
Thank you. So what are the characteristics about the book of Ruth that are being sort of emphasized here?
Well, there's a lot of chesed. Ruth for her mother-in-law, and I'm forgetting his name.
Boaz.
Boaz, thank you. Boaz towards Ruth, and Naomi towards Ruth, and they all interact. And I think what it was saying in the first paragraph, you know, that it's the action of the well-wisher by actually doing things, like Ruth was saving part of her lunch for her mother-in-law, and bringing food home to her.
Yes.
And Boaz was being kind to Ruth and told his guys not to bother her, and gave her food and water.
Yeah, thank you. The book that this came from, it's the JPS Bible commentary on Ruth. Like, if any of you have ever seen like Plout or Stone, you know, these books that sort of have the Torah with commentary that you look at during Torah study. This is sort of a similar thing by Tamar Ashkenazi about the book of Ruth, and I read it in one of my classes. It's one of the best books I've ever read. Like, her writing and her analysis is just spectacular. We traditionally read the book of Ruth on Shavuot, I believe, but she really like sort of puts the case together with a lot of like those examples that Joanne was bringing up. It's like so and so wished for this, and then the God would help them with this, and then 2 chapters later they did that very thing for themselves, or you know, they did it for somebody else. And so it's a very powerful, very powerful story. I'd love to hear some more kind of what this brings up for you, or what reactions and how that relates to maybe experiences from your life or inspirations you have for something that you might do for someone else. Yeah, Linda.
I'd like to add an addendum to what Frank was sharing about asking for a blessing. I tried to follow in his footsteps one time. I also was scared. Being a single woman out on the street. But I did it, and then I asked the man if he would give me a blessing. And he was so taken aback, it seemed, I was reading his expression, that somebody would think he had something to offer in return. And the prayer that he gave, I think, surprised us both. It was really poetic, and it was generic, so I didn't have to cringe that it was going to be something religion doesn't follow. So I wanted to say that. And also, I wanted to make a case for those of us who feel perhaps we can't give of ourselves, but we can write that check, because if the check weren't written, then the building that houses the homeless, then the food pantries that feed them, they would just be staffed by people who pat someone on the shoulder and say, you know, God loves you, I'll pray for you. So I think the tangible and the intangible are really important for you to figure out, for us to figure out what's needed here that I can do.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you for both parts of that story. It's really beautiful what you shared, and it is absolutely important for people to give. If giving money is what they can do and they're fortunate to do that, absolutely, that's very much part of the picture. Janet.
Doesn't the Talmud have something to say? Which gift is more important? The rich man who gives, let's say, $25,000, whose gift is more important? The rich man who gives the $25,000 or the poor man who gives $1? And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there something in the Talmud that the bigger gift is the more important? We may not agree with it, but I think there is something there.
I'm not familiar with that teaching in the Talmud.
Or it could be, you know, it's some common.
Yeah, but it wouldn't surprise me, and it wouldn't surprise me that there wasn't another opinion right next to it with the exact opposite, you know, which is the way the Talmud is structured. And there can be more than one right answer, because without, you know, I used to be on the board of my synagogue. I was in marketing, and you know, the big customers pay most of the bills. Most of the synagogue's bills are paid by 20% of the big donors. Most of my revenue number came in from 20% of, you know, like 80%. You know, it's like the old 80-20 rule. So, you know, we don't want to take that for granted. And I think the lesson for, you know, generosity, like if you're talking specifically about generosity, like giving generously means giving until you feel a bit of a pinch.
Mm.
So, you know, again, for one person that might be giving a quarter, and for someone else that might be giving $250,000. It just really depends on where you are. All right, let's just take another moment and once again sort of look into the camera and sort of look at one another and give each other that gift. Imagine giving of yourself to just everyone else here. And this will be a nice lead into our breakout groups. I was inspired by this reading I came across by Rabbi Rachel Baron-Blatt, who calls herself the Velveteen Rabbi. She has a somewhat popular blog out there. And she wrote about, I can't remember the title of the article, but this really struck me, is cultivating hope. Planted seeds deep within and water them and nurture them and strengthen your ability to feel those seeds growing. It's okay if you can't feel hope all the time. Just try feeling it for a single moment and then a moment more. And so when you're with your partner, you know, once again, we want to check in with where we are. But what I really love for you to spend some time is what can you do to plant those seeds of hope within others, you know, as an act of loving kindness. And again, we may not be able to control our own emotions. We may not be able to say, oh, I'm going to be hopeful. Well, maybe we can be, maybe we can't. But is there something we can do maybe to give hope to someone else? So that's our thought for today. So let me open the, where is the rooms? Breakout rooms, here we go. I was in a panic there for a moment. Okay. The rooms are open, so please click on the screen to join your breakout room. Joan, are you there? Well, if those of you who are streaming live, this is usually the time when we say goodbye. I want to invite you to come by the American Mussar Facebook page, where you can click to follow our posts. And oh, hi, Joan. Did you want to join a breakout? We've gone to breakout groups here. Would you like me to put you in a group?
No, I'm sorry. I have a call and I have to leave. I'm sorry. I'll come back next time.
No problem. Well, thank you so much for joining this week.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Okay. Sorry, Maddie.
You may want to remute yourself. Oh, you're just going out. Okay. She is out. All right. So anyway, if any of you are watching on the live streaming, you saw that. But come by AmericanMussar.com and check out our Jewish Wisdom page. You can sign up to I get our email prompts that come out every 2 weeks, or come by the American Mussar Facebook page and sign up to follow the event. Anyway, wishing you strength and courage during this challenging time. Should someone choose to. So here we are, we're back, and I was just asking, did anyone come up with any ways to implant hope in others that might inspire us to take action? Last week, I know some of us committed to taking action. I committed for self-care, walking every day, trying for 20 minutes. I made about 3 days with a 20-minute walk and another 2 or 3 days with a walk around the block. So that was a big improvement on the week before. So what can we do to implant seeds of hope in others?
Hi. We didn't talk about this in the group, but I just remembered Eileen and I are getting together a group of people whom we don't know who's going to be in the group yet, but to do weekly walks here in our town, just to get out and to socialize, because a lot of us are stuck in the house. So that was one way I thought that we could inspire one another and support one another, to explore the many trails that we have and to get to know one another in a different setting.
Wonderful. Thank you, Carrie. Nancy?
She's muted also. I was going to say, Nancy and I did speak about, what do you say when someone has a bad diagnosis or they're going to go into surgery? And, I think just to let them know that they're in your thoughts, and you're hoping for them, you hope for them to have a good recovery and a successful surgery, whatever, and also depending on whether they believe in divine or not, you could say you pray for them. And I was saying to Nancy that there is evidence that people prayed for do better than people who are not prayed for. So just knowing that a lot of people are praying for you, even if with or without belief in the greater, higher power, whatever, you should know that we're helping to get you to a good result.
Yeah, thank you. Well, that reminds me of my mom. I always say, many people know she died earlier this year of COVID, and they made this person's be a blessing. And my mother was very big on praying for people. And, I remember I took my first plane flight, and she always used to pray whenever I was on a plane, and I was like, oh, okay, well, so it's a way that I fondly remember her as one. She really cared, and she had a whole prayer circle, and this big thing, she would email everybody, or she would call, and they would get the phone tree going, and they would all pray, and it always meant a lot to me. It was very heartfelt and sincere. So that is a very nice thing to do for other people. It's a chesed to pray for someone, and as we talked about, also to bless someone and to ask for a blessing. Other ideas? Anything else you'd like to inspire the group with for things that we might do for one another? Yeah, Lainey.
Well, this didn't come up I had a wonderful conversation with Randy and about his mother, who he referred to as noble. I thought that was just a wonderful word. But just this last week, with it, I'm sure everybody's been feeling it, is the stress and the anxiety and everything. And a few of my friends and I got together and did some meditations around the elections. And I kind of initiated it. And we watched there was actually a Buddhist meditation group for the election too. So, in a time when it's really frightening. And for me, I feel like I'm really ungrounded because I've really haven't met so many people that are so angry and so openly, violent even. I having a really hard time with that. So I am trying to, and this group is part of it, is being with people that are kind and use loving kindness as a way of communicating. I think that's all I'll say.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, finding the right community of people to be with is important, as we've had our moments of connection tonight. Is one small example of that. And finding like that group where you can find comfort and grounding. And for you, it was this meditation group, and that's wonderful. And Carrie's talking about going on walks, and and here's Alan. Bombing our Zoom meeting.
It's funny.
Anything? We're just about out of time. Anyone else like to have one more comment they'd like to share?
Well, I spoke a lot, but this is a Buddhist prayer that I've kept on my wall for years, and I actually put it in my synagogue newsletter as anonymous. I cleared with the rabbi. In this time of turmoil, may our thoughts be clear, may our feelings be compassionate, may our needs be fulfilled, and may we create peace.
Beautiful.
On that note, let us all close our eyes. And just put our energy towards creating peace. May that be our gift. Prayer for peace. Peace in our hearts. Offering peace to those with us on this call. Offering peace to those in our lives, in our community, and in our country, and in this whole world. May we offer them our blessing for peace and wholeness. And together, let us say Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. If you are not on the mailing list and you would like to be, please be sure. I haven't seen anything in the chat from you yet. I'm also going to share in the chat, like if any of you are curious about that book, there is a link to it on Amazon. And if you don't like Amazon, and it is actually for sale on Target. So,
Greg,
yeah.
because the chat disappears the minute we sign off, could you send it in your email?
Sure. Sure, I can send that out in the next email.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I've learned that I can't copy a chat very easily. It doesn't seem to want me to do that.
Yeah, if you click on the link, sometimes it'll just open in a web page, so that can sometimes work and be a little more persistent. But I will, and if I forget, you can also just email me and I'll send it to you. Most of you probably have my email. It's greg@americanmussar.com. But if you don't have that, you can also email me there. So, well, this has really been a wonderful experience with you